Okay, hello everyone. So today I'll be presenting my work entitled From BabaeAko to HijaAko, Filipino Women's Movement in the Digital Sphere and Beyond. So I'm Dr. Earvin Charles Cabalquinto, and I'm a lecturer in communication at Deakin University. And before I run through my case studies and discuss them, I'll present first the outline of today's presentation. So today's presentation, I'll be focusing first on really unpacking the context wherein these movements are operating in, more specifically reflecting upon the positionality of Filipino women in Philippine society based on reports and statistics. And then after that one, I'll map out the two case studies that I'm examining, so which is hashtag BabaeAko, I am a woman, and also hashtag IhaAko, which means I am Iha. And then after unpacking some of the humble beginnings of these movements and their impacts and also the paradoxical consequences of these movements. I'll then talk about some of the important issues relating to abuse and exploitation of Filipino women in Philippine society, more specifically looking at some of the reports and case studies, really unpacking how we might really think about how the sexist and misogynistic comments are kind of like creating the kind of like harassment, kind of like exploitation, and also displacement of Filipino women in Philippine society. And lastly, I'll provide some key reflections on these case studies and how we might think about the cross-fertilization of dissent and also digital media platforms and also gendered frames and social structures that kind of like impeding or undermining those capacities of Filipino. Okay, in terms of the positionality of Filipino women in Philippine society, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, there were 53.8% Filipino women in March 2020. And obviously, the Philippines, labor exporting country, it has also a feminized labor migration. So according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, 56% of the 2.2 million migrant Filipino workers in 2020 were women. And we're really unpacking, talking about working in hospitality, education, healthcare, and a lot of fields wherein these women are actually employed. The Philippines is also considered a Catholic country. Roughly 80% of the population is Roman Catholic, and one of the two countries in the world where divorce remains illegal. So Filipino women, in terms of the media, represented or also stereotype as care in the family and altruistic mothers or sisters or an obedient wife. So these representations are also linked to the teachings of the Catholic Church in the Philippines, but also the representations in the media environment of the digital space. And lastly, more recently, the Reproductive Health Bill was implemented in 2017, providing women with the rights to choose and access reproductive health resources such as contraceptives, family planning services, and so forth to manage and improve their lives. So prior to the passing of this particular bill, there was a lot of debates, more specifically, for example, from pro-life and also the Catholic Church contesting this move to allowing women to kind of like use contraceptives, kind of like saying that it's against the teaching of the church and also unconstitutional. So in terms of the reports of the global gender gap in 2020, the Philippines is ranked as 16 out of the 153 countries with the narrowest gap between men and women. So it's really performing well in terms of dimensions on economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, and health and survival. But however, the political empowerment score is down by 6.3 percentage points in 2020. And this is caused by the lower female representation in the cabinet, which declined from 25% to 10% between 2017 to 2019. And female representation in Congress also fell slightly at 28% at the beginning of 2000. So this is a kind of like environment wherein the Filipino women are actually placed and operating in and negotiating all of these social structures in what we call that kind of like social environment. So the BabaeAko movement that I'm talking about now is the first case study that we'll be focusing on, more specifically defined as a social media movement by Filipino women, created in May 2018, after President Rodrigo Roa Duterte declared that he preferred the next ombudsman of the Philippines as not a woman. So this happened after Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, one of Duterte's critiques, was unceremoniously ousted from her position. Sereno, the Philippines' first female Chief Justice, was actually accused of failing to file assets and liabilities, not paying about 2 million pesos in taxes and falsifying and tampering with court resolutions. So it's a kind of allegations during that time, and she was ousted for that particular position. And then this hashtag BabaeAko was created not only because of that particular um, scenario or event, but as kind of like a series of events leading up to this kind of like movement or challenging this sexist and misogynistic comments and discriminatory kind of like approaches of the government towards women, and also in the Filipinos in terms of like that cases of different situations. So there were like online posts had the hashtag of hashtag BabaeAko and a series of contents with the statement Lalaban Ako. This movement was actually created rather by bold declarations from founders including former Social Welfare Secretary Judy Tagiwalo, activist May Paner, journalist Inday Espina Varona, and Coalition Against Trafficking in Women Chief for Asia Pacific Jean Enriquez, and many others. So it was the brainchild as well of the Coalition for Justice, a multi-sectoral organization in the Philippines that defended the Chief Justice at that time, being ousted by the president. And also it also came to fruition with the support of women's coalitions, World of March of Women, and Gabriela Philippines. So it's not only about the social media movement happening in an online space, obviously, but actually move into a physical space wherein there's a physical protest that happened in Luneta during the Philippine Independence Day celebration in 2018. And these are on the right photo, like right page of this presentation. You'll see a lot of some examples of photos during the protest. So when I think about the BabaeAko movement, it's actually pushing for this kind of like fighting against discrimination, right, for women. But then obviously the daughter of the president, Mayor Sara Duterte, belittled the campaign, saying that it's actually doomed. This is ironically despite the fact that Sarah was actually once referred to as by the president as a drama queen when she confessed that she had been a victim of sexual assault. So she was referring to this idea that it's gonna be doomed because of the fact that, as she was arguing this particular tweet, what he doesn't like, referring to the president, lies not in the gender, but in the character. He has no respect for weakness. And many women and some men are known to be damsels in distress, that BabaeAko included. Hashtag. Please do not listen to him interpret the Bible or Quran. He's not a priest, a pastor, or an imam. He's the president. Listen only when he speaks about his work. And then she was also saying that do not waste your negative energy on this interpretation of the Bible, that this is his opinion, he's protected with the constitutional right to freedom of speech and expression, even as the president and stuff like that. So they kind of like tweet challenging the contestations of these women feeling abused, also kind of like discriminated in different capacities. And when we think about the BabaeAko hashtag movement, we're referring to calling out sexist and misogynistic pronouncements by the president. It's actually fueled by those experiences. And also the comments are often encouraging sexualization, objectification, and violence against women, you know. And obviously the president throwing crass jokes and offensive remarks towards women. And not only that one, when we think about the hashtag BabaeAko and woman movement, we're referring to a series of events leading up to this kind of like explosion of being harassed and disrupted and discriminated in various capacities or situations. For example, President Duterte joked about an Australian missionary who was raped before being killed in 1989 as being so beautiful that the mayor should have been first in line. He also gave his permission to soldiers to rape up to 3 women amid concerns over martial law in Marawi City. He ordered soldiers to shoot female New People's Army rebels in the vagina, and also Duterte said the kiss it would take for Christine Lagarde, head of the International Monetary Fund, to change her economic outlook of the Philippines. And then female officials who have criticized Duterte for its war on drugs and extrajudicial killings were punished, such as Senator Laila de Lima, remaining under detention, and also Chief Justice Lourdes Sereno was forced out of the office. And obviously you can remember that the 72-year-old sister Patricia Fox, an Australian missionary, was advocating for human rights, and a critique of President Duterte was deported. So President Duterte actually confiscated her passport. And leading up to that protest, Independence Day in 2018, Duterte visited actually South Korea and addressed the Filipino migrants in there. And then one particular event, he kissed a female overseas Filipino worker, a married one, during that visit. And there were like divided views about that. For some, you know, the supporters, it was a fatherly gesture or a form of entertainment because there was a consent of the woman, you know, being married. At the same time, it was actually criticized. It was an abuse of power, authority, and displaying of sexism, even it was control. So the kind of like eruptions of this series of events piling up, leading up to this movement, creating that, we are women, we are fighting, we are actually not should be discriminated or harassed in different situations or being abused by those who are in power. And then the hashtag BabaeAko was actually created in that space. It was not only supported by Gabriela or various institutions or women or individuals, but also internationally, some celebrities kind of like advocating for this one, such as, for example, Rosario Dawson, actress, posing with a photo with the hashtag and with someone supporting that particular. Obviously, in the protest, the physical protests, there were like artists showcasing their work, challenging this structural discrimination, and activist May Paner showcasing how women should be actually positioned in this society, not being discriminated, harassed in those capacities. And obviously, the protest was attended by different individuals advocating for women's rights. And very proud that it actually Time Magazine recognized the movement, highlighting BabaeAko as Time's 25 most influential people on the internet, despite the criticisms that were thrown to this kind of like movement for advocating for women's rights, especially in this age where in sexism and misogynistic comments are kind of like everywhere and they're propagating physical and online spaces. Like BabaeAko, and then more recently, just in 2020, like in June, there's this new hashtag what we call HijaAko. I am Hija. So Hija is a Spanish word, could mean daughter. It could also be referring to a female teen if you're actually older and you're referring to this younger female teen, so or female teen or something like that. And the term Iha in this particular movement was born out not only to refer to a daughter or young teen, but rather kind of like appropriated to reclaim and refer to girls who fight for their rights as human beings. So it started when Simon Francisca Emmanuel Cuneta Pangilinan, known as Frankie or Khaki, the daughter of Philippine celebrity Sharon Cuneta and Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan, actually posted a tweet about the need to teach people not to rape in reaction to an online post of a municipal police station that warned women to avoid wearing revealing clothes so that they would not be targeted for sex crimes. So kind of like I'll show you later the tweets and the responses for that one. And Frankie was then criticized by television host Ben Tulfo for saying that the way women dress actually invites a sex offender or the beast to commit a crime. So then it started like, people reflecting upon this narrative of victim blaming, rape culture in the Philippines started to kind of like explode. And then the hashtag created was hashtag HijaAko. And obviously that word Iha used by Ben Tulfo was used to talk down to Frankie in that instant. So on your on this particular screen, you will see the actual post by the municipal police station. In translation, it's saying, let's love women and not abuse their kindness. And you girls, on the other hand, should not wear excessively short clothes that when you're harassed, you come to us for help. Think about it too. And then Khaki replied to that particular post saying that stop teaching girls how to dress, teach people not to rape. And then Ben Tulfo said, Iha, tagging the Twitter page of Khaki, a rapist or a juvenile sex offender's desire to commit a crime will always be there. All they need is an opportunity when to commit the crime. So sexy ladies, careful with the way you dress up. You are inviting the beast. And then Khaki actually posted, responding to that particular tweet, saying, rape culture is real and a product of this precise line of thinking, where the behavior is normalized, particularly by men. The way anyone dresses should not be deemed as opportunity to sexually assault them ever. Calling me Iya will not belittle my point. And then Ben Tulfo posted again on his Facebook page for that show that he's running in BTAG Live, showcasing that this is kind of like you should be really dressing up properly because you can be actually harassed in those particular instances. And then Khaki said with hashtag HijaAko, so this is where the hashtag HijaAko was actually born. I'd also like to sign up for the Hija label if that's what Ben Tulfo was calling girls who fight for their rights as human beings. So this is where kind of like reappropriating the Hija as an empowering oneself and speaking up and calling out those abuses and harassments in online spaces, or kind of like creating the victim blaming narrative more specifically. So again, people started to share their experiences, talking about their harming experiences, also reflecting on that it's not about the clothes, the clothing, the outfit. but she's the rapist. For example, this hashtag of someone like, talking about corporate attire, school uniform, and baby clothes. You can be raped even if you're wearing different outfits, not revealing outfits, as what, the previous tweets were being referred to, that's causing obviously the kind of like abuse or exploitation of women. That and not only ordinary people who were talking about and using the hashtag HijaAko across online platforms, but also celebrities, um, trying to say that we should stop victim blaming and also start talking about the rape culture in the Philippines and speak out if you're being abused. For example, another tweet from a celebrity showcasing that rapists are the cause of rape and not short skirts, alcohol, flirty behavior, walking alone, and television and stuff. And obviously, the media picked up this hashtag more recently, talking about sharing stories of women wearing different clothes that still they're being harassed in public spaces, being raped by family members or relatives, or even exploited in different capacities. And there was this particular infographic posted by the Philippine National Police talking about Iwas rape tips. So it's deviating from that narrative of victim blaming, but rather focusing on the perpetrator or the culprit of these crimes or harassment. So do not rape. If you see someone wearing sexy or kind of like a woman wearing an outfit, a particular outfit. Do not rape just because you're dating someone and then you put someone like, put something in the drink of that someone and then rape them after. Or also kind of like, or just seeing someone walking, and then you rape that someone. This rape culture is being articulated, criticized in those spaces, started by that hashtag HijaAko. But then again, the limitations or kind of tensions created in those spaces would be there will be some people who'd be kind of like throwing vitriolic or vile comments. Specifically, for example, this one, a guy said, if I'm only actually 12 years old, you should hide now because I'll be actually finding you and raping you. So it's kind of like traumatizing that space. That's why now the mother of Khaki, Sharon Cuneta, is really trying to track this person's profile and also thinking of suing or creating some certain actions for that behavior. And more recently, Khaki started to screenshot some comments about her advocacy for criticizing rape culture in the Philippines or victim blaming. And there was an example of girls wearing modest clothes are harder to rape. Simple as I know this from experience. So you see all of this kind of like that's just coming out from individuals and even saying that Khaki is not actually stimulating anyway. So again, the tensions in movements were in operating in online. What we can actually reflect upon for this particular movement of the HijaAko is a kind of like contradictions in terms of like these women are really experiencing all of this abuse and exploitation, and it's being reported across statistical papers or even factual information. For example, according to the Department of Social Welfare and Development, some 222 women were sexually exploited in 2019. And according to the Philippine National Police, there were 2,162 rape cases reported to the police in 2019 and 268 cases of prostitution or emotional abuse. And further, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, sexual abuse of Filipino women contracted 23.7%, 264 cases, and women affected by armed conflict 18.8% to 13 cases, and physical abuse, maltreated, battered 16.5% to 108 cases in 2019. So it is thus important to really move away and challenge and undermine and critique all of these victim blaming narratives, also this kind of like the rape culture in the country, and also just thinking about these comments, sexist, misogynistic, and discriminatory, not only coming out from ordinary people, but from those who are in power, that ordinary people might think that it's actually okay to throw all of these comments because it's being done by someone in that space. And paradoxically, Duterte actually signed the Republic Act 11313, known as the Safe Spaces Act, authored by Senator Rizon Tiveros, thinking about penalizing sexual harassment, including catcalling, wolf whistling, and persistent telling of sexual jokes. But ironically, the president is actually doing all of this kind of like actions which undermine the rights of women, discriminate women, and also place women in very vulnerable and marginalized. When I was actually reflecting on the hashtag BabaeAko and also HijaAko, These are social media movements. For the BabaeAko, there's actually transcending that online space and moving to online protests in physical spaces, engaging women from different backgrounds, speaking about their experiences of discrimination because of their gender, and undermining their capacities. And then you have the HijaAko, wherein young people could be talking about young teens, talking about their experiences of being talked down, or also being placed in those marginalized conditions by blaming them for their for wearing particular outfits and stuff like that. And the network space, network connectivity, providing that kind of like engagement to speak up, to kind of like develop the capacity to empower oneself by sharing real stories, also calling out individuals, and also creating this solidarity based on relatable narratives, obviously pertaining to experiences of abuse and exploitation. But what is important here is like we really try to unpack the politics of everyday life as experienced by Filipino women, and the movements, the way they're actually seen, perceived, positioned, and even communicated, being targeted in particular spaces, are kind of like developed or kind of like constructed by these gendered frames in Philippine society that are often stringent and undermining their capacities. That's why there's a push for fighting back against sexism, exploitation, and misogyny in these spaces through hashtag movements. However, some limitations. These women could be subject to other comments. It can be like threatening in online spaces. Which is why you can even think about, feminist movements, across online platforms. That there are contradictory experiences. However, what is important, we voice out. We start talking about these issues. We unpack the importance of solidarity and speaking out to call out, not positioning women as to be blamed in all situations, for example, being raped or, further kind of like engagements with different capacities. So rather, we position women as leaders, women as really engaged, proactive, and know their rights and have their say in particular situations, rather than being pushed into different spaces because branding them as weak or kind of like because of their gender. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and hopefully I was able to unpack some of the issues and affordances of the social media movements, specifically in the Philippines. That's it. Thank you.